Hi, welcome to the Psychical Research Science Society's October meeting. And today we are just so thrilled to have Andrea Berger. She is a residential and outreach trainer for the Monroe Institute. The Institute has been on a mission to enhance worldwide cooperative efforts in furthering the exploration of consciousness, expand awareness, and discovery of self. Ms. Berger is also the founder and president of the Association for Consciousness Evolution. The Association of Consciousness Evolution is a nonprofit 501 charitable organization with a mission to accelerate the evolution of consciousness through education, practical exploration, and personal transformation. She's an accredited trainer at the Monroe Institute, a certified vortex healing energy healer, a Reiki master, an enthusiastic yoga practitioner. She also earned a master's in transpersonal studies from Atlantic University, which was founded under Edgar Cayce in the Virginia Beach area of Virginia. She also has degrees from Indiana University, the College of International Holistic Studies, the Technical University of Munich, and the University of Bucharest. I don't know if I said that right, but hopefully I did. Thank you, Ms. Berger, for joining us today. We are so excited to discuss your work, not only with the Monroe Institute, but with your association. And thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Angela. Glad to be here.
Well, I want to start off with the first question. Could you tell us how you got involved in the study of consciousness and how you ended up with studying from Atlantic University, working with Monroe Institute, founding the association you founded? Can you just tell us your journey?
Sure. I'm going to try and make it brief. It is a long story. I grew up in communist Romania. And during that time, anything spiritual was forbidden. Just going to church was frowned upon, and you may have gotten into trouble. But as a child, I was always interested in maybe these forbidden spiritual books that my family and friends were sharing with each other. They were translated from French or English, and we would just pass it from one to each other, and we would just read these spiritual books. And perhaps because it was forbidden, it had a high interest for me at a very early age. I remember reading, putting my hands on a Hatha yoga book. And then I started practicing yoga by myself with no teacher, just that book that had some pictures in it. It was an old book. And I think that because spirituality was forbidden, and because in the communist regime we didn't have other distractions like a lot of TV or concerts or things like that, I had more time on my hands to dedicate to my interests, which was reading spiritual books and practicing yoga. And I remember when I was 18, my mother, my father died when I was 18. And that was a difficult time. He died of a heart attack. And shortly after, my family had the idea that it was time for us to leave Romania and emigrate to a Western country. And having grown up bilingual, Germany was our desired destination. And my mother was, we were in the early planning stages to leave Romania, and it had to be not shared with anyone. It was, we could have ended up in jail had somebody would have found out that that was our plan. So my mother went to a spiritist, a seance session to ask certain questions about our plans. These were very trusted friends. And she asked me if I wanted to come along. And I was curious. That was one of the things that I had as a child. I was curious. I said, oh, you want to talk to the dead, presumably connect with my father and her deceased family members. So I was curious and I went along, and we started, we used something like a Ouija board, but self-made. And people were asking questions one at a time, and the answer was coming. And I felt that we were each putting our finger on a upside down crystal glass. I think it was a schnapps glass, a vodka glass. So I could feel that my finger was kind of moving from letter to letter and to numbers in a cohesive way. And I didn't feel like it was like somebody was moving it from the group. So that intrigued me, and we did get some encouraging answers to the questions that my mom had. And this was an event that I think was key because once my mother and my sister left Romania, we couldn't all three escape. I was left basically as a hostage back, like a guarantee that they will return, together with the pension that my mom, she had recently retired. And when they left, I basically didn't have any first degree family. And I had some aunts and uncles, but I did not want to put them in any danger in case they were interrogated. So for me to get advice and comfort, I said, maybe I should also use the technique that I had observed during that session, spiritist session, and connect with my deceased father. I didn't think that that was anything extraordinary. I thought that, yep, that's what people do. It didn't feel strange or anything. And I had absolutely no fear or concerns that maybe it won't work. So I created my little, put the letters and the numbers and yes and no. And I asked questions, and sure enough, I started, the little glass started moving, and that was my first connection with my deceased father. At that point, I was 20, 21 years old. And I got a lot of good advice from him for a couple of years while I was alone there. He actually told me when I was going to be interrogated. He told me, oh, somebody's going to come tomorrow to interrogate you, and you need to make sure that you say this, this, and that. And sure enough, a communist officer came to my door. It was a Saturday evening. I would have not come up with that time or date. And so I felt that my father and the presence of other deceased relatives were very much around me, and I started to feel them, and I could actually even hear them almost in my head, and I was able to give the right answers and buy my mother and sister some more time before they declared that they were not returning to Romania. Basically, they started a new life in Germany, and after a couple of years, I was able to join them in Germany. But during that time, I feel that was the beginning of my spiritual development. I was in touch not only with my father, but also other guides that showed up. And they taught me how to meditate. I didn't know how, and they also showed me how to recognize a particular energy being versus another. So when somebody says, oh, I'm such and such, like my father, I could sense his energy that was different from other beings that showed up. And over time, I started with a Ouija board, but over time I dropped that to a just letters, and I had a pencil and I could just point to the various letters, and it started becoming faster and faster, and I had the answer in my head before even pointing. So then I started to do just to write, state the question, write it down, and then just started doing automatic writing. So it was a progression from the regular Ouija board to just letters on a piece of paper, and my hand was starting to move very quickly from letter to letter to just writing down. So that was the automatic writing. My hand would just start moving by itself. And then I said, well, it would be very helpful if I could have this ability to connect with my guidance without having to take out a pen and paper, basically to connect in my head. So I asked for guidance to accomplish that ability. And sure enough, after a while, I would ask a question and the answer would appear in my head. And I thought that was very helpful because when I was interrogated, I was able to just look like a little bit like I'm thinking of the answer, but what I was doing is just connecting with my guidance team. I
Can I,
also,
can I
yeah, go
ask a
ahead.
question? No, I just want to ask you a question too. Now, you also went to school for science, like an engineering degree, computer science, I believe. Did
Yeah.
you use, like, when you were testing your intuition and your connection to your father and your connection to your guides, did you ever have skeptic doubt? Did you do any type of tests to challenge what you were picking up, or did you just accept?
Well, if I felt like doubt, I would ask to please clarify and give me signs. Yes, it is very strange that I had these hobbies and interests. And also I was studying electrical engineering at the Polytechnical Institute in Bucharest. So I didn't think that those were self-excluding. I didn't have a test that I could do because even now there isn't one. I just trusted and verified the information. So when my father said somebody's going to come and interview the next day, I paid attention and sure enough it happened. So I started to trust the information that I was getting. And there were also many synchronicities. I was then also put in touch with an energy healer that was using in Romania, was using hypnosis to do healing. And another energy healer that was using her hands to do hands-on healing. So I started working with them because I felt that I remembered, as if from another life, I remembered that skill set. I knew what to do. So I felt my intuition strongly told me that this is not my imagination. This is not something that that I need to dismiss. On the contrary, I felt that it was a wonderful skill set to have as I went through my life. And eventually my father told me that he had other things to do and prepared, and he and I said goodbye. And he told me that my departure from Romania was all set. I had my passport, and that I didn't need his help anymore. And I let him go, and we said goodbye. Over the years, my guidance team has changed, added. I try not to be, kind of become emotionally too attached to a particular guidance team, and know that guidance is connected to our total self, higher self. The way Bob Monroe said it, it's I there. The totality of who we are is always there to provide us with guidance, and there is no separation. And if at some point a particular guidance voice retreats and another one comes forward, I welcome that. So not to stay stuck with just one set of guidance. So that's how I came to start my own journey. And then once I went to Germany, I continued my studies in electrical engineering at the Technical University in Munich. And one of my lab assistants, I looked at him and I said, oh, I think I know him. He's going to give me some important information. And sure enough, we started talking, and he slowly opened up to me and said, yes, I do yoga and I have a spiritual teacher. And I said, well, could you introduce me to him? And it was this wonderful gentleman yoga teacher from the UK who was living in Germany, and John Weston. And I took yoga classes with him, and he then introduced me to his own spiritual teacher, um, a teacher from India, and recommended that I would go and continue my consciousness spiritual studies in India. And with my first earned money in Germany, I booked myself a trip to India and joined the spiritual teacher in a retreat center or an ashram. And we were meditating pretty much all day there. And it was there that I met my husband, who was there. He's American. He was there with an American group. I was there with some folks from Germany. And when I saw him, I kind of recognized him and he me. And a few days later, he asked me to marry him. And I said, of course. And within a few months, I moved from Germany, where my mother and sister were living, and where I had lived for 2 years. I moved to the United States in '88. And did my graduate studies in computer science at the Indiana University in Bloomington. And then I had a long corporate career with a large consumer goods company, which brought me to Cincinnati. And I spent 22 years doing information technology work, IT work at this company, with a corporate culture. And I continued my interests. So I came across Bob Monroe's books. He has 3 books in the 90s. And I said, what a new Western style way of doing meditation using binaural beats and frequencies and sound to induce these states of consciousness that you can get into by doing meditation of other forms, like the one that I learned in my youth in Romania from my own guides, but also what I learned in India. So having being able to use this technology, I thought it was a very clever and innovative way to get into those states of consciousness faster, and for more people that may not have the time or interest to invest in their spiritual practice. So I bought CDs or cassettes at that time. And eventually, after a few years, I found myself, I went to the Monroe Institute for their Gateway Voyage program. That's their introductory program that everyone takes. And then they have advanced or graduate programs. And I thought, wow, this was something that was of interest to me. And I continued taking Monroe programs over the years, and eventually wanted to become a trainer so I can bring the Monroe Institute to Romania, which meanwhile has become a democratic country, and it's now part of NATO and has a democratic government. So when Romania changed the regime from communist to a democratic country, there was an openness, and I felt that, oh, I should. I felt actually I felt like my guidance was saying that my mission is to bring these programs, Monroe Institute programs, to Romania, with this type of meditation that is very easy to do and applicable, and has a Western approach to it. It is not the typical Eastern Indian type of way of doing meditation. It is a more Western approach, and we call them meditation exercises. And I brought many programs to Romania, and meanwhile there are other trainers there that have been trained, and they carry on this work for many years now. And I continued to also train at the Monroe Institute, and it gives me great satisfaction to help people connect with their with how much more they are than their physical body, to first have the realization and openness that, oh, I am so much more than my physical body. And then two, oh, I'm curious, I want to explore how much more I am. And then connect with consciousness that is their consciousness, their higher self or their total self, the totality, get to know more the totality of who they are, get in touch with guidance, get answers to daily questions and issues, and have a better, have the tools, consciousness tools, to better deal with daily challenges. So, yeah.
So, okay, I have so many. Okay, first off, did you ever meet Robert Monroe?
Not in the physical.
Okay, that's awesome. Did you ever reconnect with your father when you were doing the training?
No, because I did respect what he had asked me not to connect, and he told me why, that he had some other plans, and I respected that. But I have connected with the energy of other family members, and I know that if necessary, I could connect with him.
Awesome. I love it. Well, one of the questions I had sent you, but I really want to touch on, is now that you're training people, and you said you love seeing how they awaken and they're becoming aware of their out of body even. Can you describe the experiences some of your participants have had, or you yourself have had, in connecting to their consciousness? Just because some of our members, this may be totally new to them, and maybe they've never even, I've been sending stuff about Monroe Institute and you and your videos to people. So, but again, can you just describe the experience of connecting to your consciousness? What have you observed, or you yourself have felt?
Well, there are many programs beyond the Gateway program, and they each have a different focus. And but let's say beginners go to the Gateway program, and I had people that wanted, let's say they come in and they have had a big loss in their life, like a loved one passed away. I had a person that their son died, and she and her husband were never able to reach closure and move on. And during the program, they were able to connect with their deceased son and gain closure, which then helped them to move on. And it was extraordinary healing for them. Other people may come and they have they're in need of guidance. They feel totally disenchanted with their life or their accomplishments, and they may be depressed, and they may even considered suicide, and they come to the Monroe Institute because they're at the kind of down in the bottom of, and they are looking for hope and some new beginnings, and they get in contact with guidance, or they have an extraordinary, we call those extraordinary human experiences, EHEs, and they have this extraordinary experience where they may meet a being, or they may have a cosmic consciousness type feeling where they feel one with all that is, and then tears start flowing down, and there is this just like immense joy and peace and feeling one with all and understanding what's going on, having a different, reaching a different overview for themselves and why certain things happen. And that is extraordinary healing and life-changing. They have like causes people to have big life undertake big life changes after a Monroe program. Well, we cannot guarantee that it will happen for everyone, but I've seen it happening to enough people that I can definitely say that it is indeed life-changing to come to such a program and do this type of inner work. And whatever it is that is needed for everyone, but so for example, finding joy and peace sounds maybe trivial, but being able at any moment to tap into your inner resources and find peace, regardless of what's going on in the community or in the country, in the world. And then find also an inner joy that is not dependent on others or actions of others, and being able to then tap into this consciousness and inner joy and inner peace and just beaming it out to others. So you don't need to tell people anything, but you just beam your energy, and people feel maybe they come and ask you a question, and then you can give them a little bit of an answer or hope. So it is. I've seen many changes. I had once a woman that came to the Monroe Institute during the Timeline program, which is about remembering, exploring, accessing other lives. So you learn how to time travel into another life, past life, parallel life, future life, whatever it is that is important for you to discover at this time. And that is, and this woman discovered the reason of why she was almost deaf. She couldn't hear, and over the course of a week, she would ask me to turn the volume down to her room because she was getting more and more of her hearing back. And that was for me amazing to witness as she was healing her past. She would heal her present and future. And it is interesting to find out what other lives you had, but going in with a purpose of healing. Let me find out an unresolved conflict from another life that has an impact on my current life. Let me understand that situation, and that triggers a huge healing for your other self in the other life and for your current self, because chances are that until you learned that lesson or dealt with that, it still shows up in this life, perhaps also in a different form maybe, but that may still be an issue that is unresolved. Grief or unrequited love or freedom or lack thereof. Things like that. And also you may find that you remember some abilities or talents that you had that you can enliven in your current life, knowing that the totality of who you are, which is the sum of all your embodiments or incarnations in this earth life system and other life systems, chances are that a particular skill set is already there. You just need to tap into it and remember it and put it to use in your current embodiment, which is an expression of your total self. So that's something that comes in handy. There are courses in lucid dreaming, and people are interested in that. There are courses in guidelines, so getting in touch with your guidance. I mean, we do that also during the Gateway Voyage program, but also if you feel like, oh, I need more, you can repeat the Gateway Voyage program or take guidelines, which helps you get in touch with guidance. And
So,
there's like,
oh,
yeah, go ahead.
so you, I mean, you're explaining all the beautiful healing, the beautiful benefits. I think this is great, but scientifically, does it work on everyone? Does this binary meditation program,
Binaural.
yeah, does it work on everyone? Can it work on everyone?
I think that it works on a high percentage, and I can't guarantee that it will work on anybody. And but I think there are also weekend programs or online programs. People can try it out. The thing is to have the desire to explore and experiment. If you have that desire and you try this method, if it doesn't work, you try something else. But you need to have that interest. Where I see it doesn't work is, let's say, as a family member has had wonderful experience and they say, oh, you have to come with me, and they take their friend or family member, and that friend or family member may not have the interest. There might be fears, and then it may not work for them. So be having the you yourself, not because somebody's taking you there, you yourself wanting it. You will know if this is the right thing for you. Does it get you excited if you read or you hear what I'm telling you now? If it does get you excited and you see, oh my God, I'm so excited, I want to go. Usually that you get something. Well, it's like everybody can learn how to play, let's say, tennis. Some of us have more abilities than others, but with enough work, anybody who meditates in whatever type of form gets results. But you need to want to be willing to invest your time and energy, and any introspective activities like Tai Chi or yoga or anything, they can get you into a state, an altered state of consciousness where you may get ideas and creativity. Some people come because they want to, I want to become more creative. I want to be able to better and more elegantly and easily deal with issues, problems in my life. They are not interested in other lives or past lives or talking to guidance. They may not, they just want to become more creative, and they come and they get what they came up came for. So it is really very much something that you need to want to do.
Okay. So I totally agree. I mean, it's the same thing when studying anything spiritual. If they're not into it, they're going to automatically put that wall up, right? Now, you had talked about your own experience with talking with your father, and you've also mentioned your guides. Showing people about the existence of life after physical death. Do you believe your Monroe Institute and your study in consciousness can do that? Is that scientifically, you think that that's a positive way to show that there is the ability to talk to people who have passed on, that have transitioned?
Yeah, I think there have been studies in the past by various scientists that they talked to young kids who remembered other lives, And so there have scientific studies. How much they are recognized and accepted by the scientific community remains to be seen. But what we do at the Monroe Institute is not necessarily giving you scientific materials to read and convince you through that, but give you an experience, because if it is real to you, and you will know when it's real, that you're not making it up, it becomes something that's part of your experiential wisdom and knowledge base. So we strive to give people experiences that they can repeat. Well, how is this real to me? And then I would ask you, or is it my imagination? If it makes you feel better afterwards and you feel that you got healing, does it even matter? Now, so there are scientific studies that have been done at the Institute for Noetics Studies. There's been the Dean Radin at the Duke University lab. There is science. We have a director of research at the Monroe Institute who conducts scientific research with various universities or institutes that are interested in doing, putting on a scientific experiment. And we have that at the Institute. But the programs that we do, it's not for the purposes of research, but to give people this personal experience so they can then make up their mind. So that's kind of what I would say about that topic. Obviously, it would be very helpful to have scientifically explain how is this working and why is it working for others more than for others. We do have at the Monroe Institute remote viewing programs where they're teaching a scientific method that was first, I think the Stanford Research Institute came up with this remote viewing protocol where an explorer or a traveler concentrates and then starts drawing and talking and writing, describing a place at the distance, a remote place. And that was, the military started that because during the Cold War, because they had heard that the Soviet Union had remote viewers, and they were able to get sensitive information, military information, and about anywhere in the world. I mean, there is no lock or nothing you can, I mean, a remote viewer, talented, can get that information. So the military started also doing that in the United States and trained some remote viewers, obviously using the techniques from the Stanford Research Institute and maybe some other sources. So they thought it had enough science to it to invest money in it. Now we still, I mean, Joe McMonigle was the first remote viewer in the Army, and he is still a trainer at the Monroe Institute teaching his methods of how to regular people, how they can learn remote viewing. Which some people are very interested in acquiring that skill. So that's kind of what I would like to share about the science at this point.
Well, let's also talk about, because I know the Monroe Institute often talks about the collective consciousness, or the idea that you can connect with higher consciousness level. And some believe that that's what also happens with remote viewers. They connect somewhere and then they get the ability to see beyond their methods. So could you explain to our members a little bit what that means? Like what is a collective consciousness, and when we do this program or when we meditate, is that where our consciousness goes, like meets with a bunch of other consciousness? So could you explain that if you could?
Sure. Well, the word consciousness is kind of blurry, and people say, well, what is consciousness? And there are many definitions. I want to give you the definition of Robert Monroe. In his book, Far Journeys, he says consciousness is a form of energy at work. And he also says we are expressions of energy. Consciousness is focused energy. Energy focused is exponential. He also says that there is a spectrum of consciousness, and I resonate with that. There is a spectrum of consciousness that assumes it's some sort of an energy, which we have maybe not been able to measure so far. Measure on a device what is, oh, here is consciousness level 1, 2, or 3. Maybe in the future we will be able to measure consciousness, but it is, in my view and Bob Monroe's view, it is there is a spectrum of consciousness. We are always in touch with it, but it's like playing the piano. Maybe you have one octave, or maybe as you expand your consciousness, you reach a bigger part of the spectrum of consciousness, and everything is energy in the universe. So presumably you can expand your consciousness to connect with the cosmic consciousness, the consciousness of our planet, and beyond that, the consciousness of our solar system. Having the curiosity is the first step. So what would it be if I would feel, if I connect energetically with the energy, the collective energy of our solar system, or our galaxy, or our cluster of galaxies and supercluster. And it's so, as the physical universe expands, we can also think that the consciousness is infinite, expanding beyond time and space, beyond physical reality. And being open to whatever this consciousness is for you, being open to connect with more of it, whatever it is. So if your total self is this energy being that has the experiential wisdom of all your incarnations, past, present, and future, there's no time, then you can set your desire to connect with the totality of who you really are. Or you can set your intention to connect with the consciousness of the whole humanity. So this that comes where this collective consciousness starts coming into play, and having the desire, I want to connect with the consciousness of Gaia, the consciousness of all humanity, and tap into the resources that are available there. Connect with the consciousness of our guides. I mean, it's through consciousness that we have these non-physical experiences where you can get information, or connect with the consciousness of your departed loved one, or your living or departed pet, or a tree, the consciousness of a rock. So it's like you focusing on something, or you being like a telescope, having the desire to connect with a collective Energy Collective, and just letting go of sometimes limiting belief, oh, that it is black and white, or it's only this. It's whatever you think it is much, much more than that. And just saying to yourself that that is the case helps you to have a wider and better overview.
That's beautiful. I just loved it. I just loved it because it's true. I mean, that's, oh wow. Um, my, what advice would you give to somebody who scientifically or even spiritually would want to start studying consciousness? How would you advise them to start? What advice would you give them?
I would first applaud their desire and curiosity to start on this path. And I think that we live nowadays where there's so many resources available. It's not like 50 years ago even, or 30 years ago, where you had to really search to go to India. You wanted to do spirituality or whatever, you had to go to India and meditate in an ashram for 20 years. Now it's so much easier because we have so many more resources. So the Monroe has a app on your phone you can download, and you start listening to some free meditation and see how it does, how that works for you. Maybe then you say, oh, I got something of value. Maybe I did my 20-minute meditation or 10-minute meditation, and I suddenly felt more calm. So I start using that tool. They're all tools, these short meditations or exercise. And you say, oh, whenever I come home from work, if I'm very tired or if I'm very kind of anxious or upset because something happened at work or you heard something in the news, I put that 10-minute meditation. I use that tool. You start using the tool and you find that, oh, it's something for me. Then you might want to say, oh, I want to now see how it would feel if I would meditate all day. And maybe you take a 1-day program or a 2-day program. And well, I'm talking about the Monroe Institute, but if you resonate with some other spiritual methods or practices, you can try those and experience until you find something that is of you feel is of value for you, and then pursue that for 6 months and see where it takes you. But having a clear goal and a clear intent is always helping you manifest things. So we teach people how to manifest more effectively in their lives at the Monroe Institute. And the key to manifestation is to have a clear objective that's simple, not convoluted. If this, then it's something very clear that you want to accomplish. And you then keep it in your mind and work towards it. And then we are creators of our we are really creators of our existence, of our life. But many people are subconsciously creating. They have these subconscious thoughts that they may not even be aware. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not talented enough. Why would I waste my money and time doing meditation when I'm not good? Or these things can only be done by spiritual master that have special incarnation. It cannot work for a person like me. If you have this subroutine going in your head that you're not good enough, smart enough, then you manifest in your life what your thoughts are. Like Edgar Cayce was also saying, mind is the builder. So becoming aware of your thoughts and using affirmations to ensure that your thoughts stay the way you want them to stay versus veering off when you hear somebody say something, veering off into self-sabotage, because just because you're not aware of your self-sabotaging subconscious thoughts doesn't mean that they're not working for you in an unexpected, maybe undesirable way. So becoming more conscious of your thoughts and your actions, and having clear goals. How many of us spend the beginning of the year deciding, what do you, if you had your druthers, what would you want? Tell me one thing that you want to accomplish physically, and then one thing emotionally. I don't want to react, let's say, I don't want to react if somebody triggers, says something that triggers this. So I want to be able to improve my relationship with my son or my daughter. So you can have a goal for your emotional, and then for your mental. I want to read a book. So you having goals is something that then makes your manifestation come to fruit, into being. So if you want to pursue a spiritual journey, having the curiosity and having the intention, and then use your intuition, look on several websites, and then sign up for a course, or at least download an app and listen to a meditation, and then stick with it. What would it be to, if you meditated 10 minutes or 30 minutes or however much you think you can for 30 days? Because a habit needs some time to really set in. How about if I do yoga, hatha yoga, for 30 days or 6 weeks and meditate for 10 minutes? That's a very clear goal that you can achieve. And then you see, what did I gain physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually? And then you look, oh, I gained this, this, and this. And is it worth to continue? Yes or no? And therefore you then make progress. But if you just sit and say, well, I wish somebody would tell me how it is, secondhand learning is by far not as totally ineffective, but by far not as effective as if you actually have these experiences on your own. So do it yourself. And that is, I think, one of the things that Bob Monroe did. He didn't want to associate himself with any other spiritual traditions. He kept his terminology clear, didn't use astral planes. Let's travel through the astral planes. He would call them belief system territories, very neutral. Energy beings, conscious energy being, instead of maybe, or actually he would use the intelligent species. He liked acronyms. So that's the thing. It's just experience, have an experience, ask for it, and then your own guidance team and the universe will get into motion to make that desire available to you, or to help you with the manifestation.
I agree 100%. I love it. I think that your program through the Monroe Institute just encompasses the whole: emotions, mental, spiritual, physical. It just helps you on so many levels, especially with past and future events. I love that. I know we spent most of this time talking about the Monroe Institute, but I would like to give you some time to talk about your Association for Consciousness Evolution. Could you explain what the association is about, what the mission is, and how can people become members, or is it open to the public for membership?
Yes, it is open. And I created it because I wanted to use it as an umbrella for my consciousness work, be that healing, the Monroe programs or other programs that I would come up with, I wanted them to be under the umbrella of the Association for Consciousness Evolution, which is, the name came to me from Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment, the ARE. So I liked the idea of association. And then I liked when I asked myself, what is my mission in this life? Is consciousness evolution, to help people, give them tools and techniques to help them evolve, expand their consciousness. And I also wanted to have this association not only for my community here in Cincinnati, but also for my work in Romania. So all the programs, Monroe Institute programs that I've done in Romania were under the umbrella of this association, which is dedicated to providing programs, educational programs in the consciousness exploration area.
Excellent.
So
Now you train, but do you also coach with this? Or is it just training? Do you also facilitate in the sense of coaching somebody with their conscious studies?
I have done that in the past. I have, as you mentioned in my introduction, I completed another master's degree in 2013, which was the Edgar Cayce's university that he established, Atlantic University. And now it's called Masters of Arts in Transpersonal Psychology, but back then it was called Transpersonal Studies. And my field was that I chose, like my major was consciousness studies, because I thought that if I have this degree, I would be able to better help the participants at the Monroe Institute and also my clients. And specifically, my master's thesis was using another device called the Life device. It's a biofeedback device that helps with healing on the emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual level. So I was working for a while with this device and offering one-on-one sessions for people, and often people would come of a physical issue that they had. And since I'm not a doctor, I'm not using the word healing as much as reducing stress reduction, physical, emotional, mental. And so I worked in groups. I also worked one-on-one with my clients. Some of them were interested in a emotional release, or they had a trauma from the past, and that would then, I would then ask them, do you want to see if we find the beginning of this in another life? And that would actually offer some insights if they were open to it. So I do work with as a coach, as well as a trainer, as a facilitator. But again, what I like to train people is for them to be able to reach to their guidance. I don't do readings for people. I may get information when I look at them, but I want to give them the tools for them to actually find out for themselves. It is much more useful to them, and then they're not dependent on me. Come to me to ask me, oh, did I do this right or not? Well, what do you think? You go find out with yourself. Here are some tools, and then you can do the work yourself, because then it helps you much, much more than if just somebody tells you. Not saying that those types of readings are not useful for some, but that is not my mission. My mission is to give people tools so that they themselves come to the answers and realizations and insights of why is this thing happening in my life, and what is the lesson that I learned from it. And the moment you understand and even ask those questions, it can be very freeing, and you start getting the idea, why is this experience necessary for you in this life? And once you have the answer, I think maybe you're off to the next lesson, whatever that is.
This has been awesome. I just want to thank you so much for sharing all of your, first off, what you do. I have to applaud. Thank you so much, because I personally believe that study of consciousness and accessing that ability is so beneficial on so many levels for every person. So thank you for just being there doing that. And two, for your whole life being dedicated to studying this, the consciousness, the connection to consciousness, whatever you want to call it, spirit, whatever you want to call it. I know terminology, we get caught up in terms, right? But I want to thank you. But I know we've gone past our time, so I want to end this with one gratitude. So thank you so much for spending your day with us and to talk about your work with the Monroe Institute, your history of studying this spiritualism and consciousness, and the idea of just connecting with something greater than ourselves. And of course, talking about your association, which I wish you the best of luck, as it sounds amazing, the fact that you can do those education programs and help people personally transform. I would love to leave my members with some of your information on how to connect with you at the Monroe Institute. Maybe just link them to where you're going to have events coming up, or just let them know how to contact the Institute itself. And I would like to also just put out there a link to your association if possible, if I would have your permission to do that. Okay.
Yes, sure.
Awesome. Well, I want to end today. I want to thank Miss Andrea Berger. She's a residential outreach trainer from Monroe Institute, and she is the president of the Association for the Conscious Evolution, for spending her day with us, explaining her work with consciousness and just giving us a new take on our view of phenomena and just energy work. So thank you so much for spending the day with us. Thank you.
Thank